All right. Hey, welcome to another episode of Coach P's Perspective. I am happy to have my friend Eric Bond here. Eric is the founder of the Competitor's Mentality. He's the host of the Competitor's Mentality podcast, which I had the honor of being on recently. Eric came from the corporate world. Actually, let me back up. Was a college athlete, went into the corporate world, is phenomenal with leadership, building teams, and then decided to step out on his own. And he's an entrepreneur and he's running his own thing. Eric and I, if you go back and listen to our podcast, which is on his Competitor's Mentality, we have a lot in common. We both love sports, but we also love personal growth and leadership, all these various things. So I'm excited to get in this conversation. Eric, thanks for being on, bro.
Hey, Coach P, man, I'm glad to be here, man. This is gonna have a lot of fun here. So let's chop it up.
Yes, sir. So, all right. Well, so that our audience knows a little bit more about you, let's just start with your background. Like, where did you grow up? And then, we both love sports. So how did you get into sport?
Sure. Yeah, great. Thanks for the question there. So with me, I grew up in Kenmore, New York, which is a suburb of Buffalo. I'm a Buffalo guy, lived in Buffalo all my life. Bills fan for better or worse. I grew up playing three sports. I played basketball, baseball, and soccer through high school and played soccer collegiately. I'm the son of a coach. My dad was a basketball coach, mainly, AAU type stuff. Had offers to coach, in high school and all of that, but had a career and, wasn't like one of those things where he was a teacher and coach too. It was, he had a career separately outside of that and did some AAU work. And I credit him and my grandfather, who was an Army colonel, was in D-Day, and as two foundational people in my life that really instilled a work ethic and discipline and all that good stuff and really kind of formed me into the person that I am. And obviously tons of great mentors along the way, a number of coaches that I've had in my life through high school and college. I still stay in touch with nowadays, and very blessed to grow up in a loving home with a great mom and dad that were incredibly supportive, that gave me all the skills that I need to be successful in life. So, and some of that leadership stuff wore off from my dad and my grandfather, and I found myself in leadership positions a lot, especially in college. I was captain, of my team, and as I kind of got out into the work world, I learned a lot about networking and sales and how to present yourself and negotiate and do all those foundational things early on after I got out of college, and wound up getting into a career on the recruiting side, which a lot of talent acquisition stuff, and was a regional recruiting director for MassMutual for 7 years. And, worked at, on the talent acquisition side of growing the business from a revenue standpoint. Obviously, talent acquisition is a very expensive proposition in corporate America today. And a lot of money and research goes into finding talent and developing talent. And in the business that I left, the majority of people don't make it. Success rate after 4 years is right around 19-20%. So companies are spending millions and millions of dollars and failing, to do it. And thankfully, we had enough success where we really grew a ton over the last, 6-7 years that I was there. And it turned into a situation where I really wanted to spread my wings and start my own business. And that's kind of how Competitor's Mentality was born. And plus I have another business that, that I have too. And it's just kind of the American story, man. Just, blue collar kid, and just worked hard. And I, put faith in God that he's going to kind of steer me in the right direction. And you surround yourself with the right people, and you pay attention and you take constructive feedback and don't take things personally, and just work hard and put your head down and keep going. So that's really kind of my backstory.
All right. Very good. So, your dad being a coach, my dad being a coach, we have that in common. So I know that whenever I was growing up, and I knew my dad was this really good coach, and it wasn't always easy being a coach's son. I tell you what, man, because there are many times that he coached me in football, coached me in wrestling, but especially wrestling, because that was our big thing. Many times we brought home something negative to happen at practice, or I was not the easiest kid to to coach when it came to the father-son relationship, you know.
Yes.
But now that I look back, like there's so many things I learned from my dad. So you having a dad that's a coach, and then, grandfather in the military, like you said, you drew a lot of leadership from that. What are some of the key takeaways that you learned from having a dad and a grandfather who were able to positively impact through leadership a number of other people? What are some of your key takeaways?
Man, where do I begin? I mean, it's two very, two very different people. My grandfather, number one, just an incredible human being, and the leadership. I'll tell you a quick story about him really quick, and it actually happened on D-Day. And this story was told to my dad actually at my grandfather's funeral. My dad didn't have any recollection of this, but so you picture yourself. So at the time of D-Day, my grandfather was with the rank of captain in the Army, and just went through war planning and all that stuff. So he worked very closely with, same kind of war planning thing with like Eisenhower and all of that. He didn't directly work with Eisenhower, but it was in the same kind of vicinity as him as they were doing war planning for the European theater. And so anyways, they're on a landing craft going across the English Channel. And, if you look at a landing craft, obviously a lot of people have seen Saving Private Ryan, and actually Tom Hanks' character in that movie was the exact rank of my grandfather at that time. And, so you're going across a landing craft, and obviously you see what's ahead, and the horror that, and the destruction and all of that stuff that's waiting for you. And these landing crafts are just packed full of men, and most of them young men, 18, 19, 20 years old. And in that landing craft, the captain, the highest ranked person in that boat, is always at the back of the boat. And at the front were two officers that were underneath my grandfather at the front of the boat. And my grandfather looked up, and he could see one of those officers was not handling the situation very well that day and was struggling. And he could see that the men, the infantrymen that were in that boat were looking at him, and he could tell that things weren't quite right. So as that craft is approaching, my grandfather works his way through all of those men and gets up to the front of that landing craft, and obviously in choppy water, and you're packed in there like sardines, and he just puts his hand on the back of this officer that was underneath him and says, "Hey, I'll take the lead today. I got this." So you think about that. And I think about like bad days. Like I've never had a day like that. I've never had a day where I have to come ashore under heavy machine gun fire and all kinds of, barbed wire, and you're walking over dead bodies and all kinds of carnage. Like I think about my grandfather in that moment, to have the wherewithal to say, "Hey man, like I got this today. It's okay. I'm going to take us off this boat." And it's like, wow. So that's the kind of leader that my grandfather was. And from there, he went on to work for NASA. He was a rocket scientist with Bell Aerospace in partnership with NASA, helped design the Ascent rocket engine, and his team helped design that put the astronauts on the moon for the first time. So I look at my grandfather, and I was always doing the right thing. That's one of the biggest leadership things that I took away from him is doing the right thing no matter the circumstance, and leading people and showing people how things should be done. And that was a big takeaway from him. My dad, I had a lot of constructive criticism from my dad. My dad coached me tougher than any player he's ever had. And he would do it intentionally, so people saw that I wasn't just out there playing just because I was the coach's kid. And you talk about after practice or after games and having some tough conversations. Man, there was a lot of car rides home that I might have scored 16, 17, 18 points, had a really great game, and it was about everything that I didn't do well. And at the time as a kid, man, I hated that, because I was just like, man, can you just one time just say, "Hey, great job"? But when I got older, and my dad and I are the best of friends. And when I got older, I realized why he was doing that. and it was to make me better and to build me up and to build character. So, with him, it was a big work ethic thing. And if you're going to say you're going to do something, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it to the best of your abilities, or you're not going to do it at all. And there was no option for me to quit. It was, you're going to do something. If you say you're going to do something, you're 100% going to do it. And, you're going to do it right. And my dad was especially with basketball, was big, and he was a great shooting coach, big with mechanics and shooting the ball properly. And I can't tell you how many times I was out in the backyard. I mean, rain, snow, sun, sleet, whatever the condition. I mean, here, in Buffalo, it can be, 99 degrees in the summer and 2 degrees in the wintertime. So all those hours out there working on my shot, and literally was so meticulous with me and working on that. And times I was just like, man, I just want to shoot. I don't want to be so militant about doing this. But he had his method, and I kind of took that away, and now I carry that with me. Now it's, if I'm going to do something, I'm doing it. And I'm not looking back once I make that commitment.
Yeah, that story about your grandfather, I mean, how amazing. I mean, how absolutely amazing. And
yeah,
it has to, I know it would me, if I was having a rough day, there was some adversity, things weren't going right, and I was feeling down or sorry for myself, I'm sure there are days you could look back and be like, how would my grandfather react to this? Or look at what he went through compared to what I'm going through. Like, never mind. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to whine about it or.
And that's the thing is that what's a bad day for me? If maybe I don't land a client, or I don't, something doesn't work out, or I can't lift a certain amount of weight. Like, maybe my son's a little bit cranky that day. I don't know what truly is a bad day to me. And I think about not only my grandfather, but the men that he served with there, and obviously advancing from Normandy, and then getting into the small towns in France, and fighting house to house, block by block. And dude, that's a bad day. That's a lot of bad days.
Yeah.
And then at the end, my grandfather wasn't a really emotional guy. Like, he was pretty stoic. There wasn't, it wasn't a very touchy-feely individual. And the only time that I recall my grandfather, being upset was when he talked about leaving, France. And he shared that story, with my dad and my grandmother, where he's leaving France. And, the cemetery there in Normandy now obviously is pristine and beautiful, and, all those white crosses perfectly row by row. At that time, they were wooden markers and muddy field, and he went back and saw all of that, and it really hit him, the cost of what it was. And many of his men are buried there. My dad's named after one of them. And that's when it really took a toll on him as he was leaving Europe and heading back to the US after the war was over. And the cost that those guys paid is, I really don't have any words for it. It's just amazing. I'm so incredibly proud of my grandfather and the man that he was, and the things that he did for this country. I'm just so proud, and I always will be.
Yeah. I feel that 100%. Yeah. My grandfather, my mom's dad, fought in Korea. My dad fought in Vietnam. We have a lot of military come from our family, but yeah, the sacrifices that they went through, the things that they endured, compared to what upsets us on a daily basis, there's a vast difference a lot of times.
For sure.
So, all right, being a college athlete, right? You and I, we're both college athletes. We understand that experience. Tell me a little bit about being a college athlete. Some of the highs, the lows, and again, some of the life lessons that you learn from that, because a big belief I have is pretty much everything that we go through and experience, especially when it takes a lot of stick-to-itiveness and just full-out dedication, right? So whenever you have to go through that, like you do as a college athlete, I mean, if you're not dedicated, you're probably not going to make it very long. There's a lot of things that go into that, but What are some of the life lessons that you learned from that you can use on a daily basis?
Well, I guess the first one that jumps out to me is, so when I was in school, I had obviously had a full course load. I went to school, went school full time, playing a college sports, a full time job, and I also worked 25, 30 hours a week to help pay for school. So my days generally started around 6 a.m. and they didn't end till about 11:30 during the course of the school year. That was my day every day. And the big thing that I took out of that is time management, and knowing what blocks of the day that you have to accomplish things. And then number two is just a work ethic standpoint of things, of knowing what you need to do. And for me, I wasn't in a position where, I had to work. I had to work to make money and, be able to pay for things and pay my share of the freight. So I didn't have the luxury that some of my other teammates that are other people, where they can just concentrate on school and concentrate on sports and just kind of go from there. So, that time management thing was huge. And the other thing too, with all of that, is I had invested skin in the game. So with having to pay for school, I had skin in the game. So it was, that completely changes the dynamic of things. At least I think, when, if you're paying for something or part of something or whatever it is, especially when you're younger, when you're 19, 20, 21, and you have that cost association with something, that completely changes your mindset. Whereas, before, like, mom and dad would take care of a lot of things and pay for stuff, or pay for your phone, or pay for whatever it is, your car insurance or your clothes or whatever. That showed me that if you're going to work, you need to work, and it's on you to kind of get the job done. So I'd say those are probably the big things. And the other thing too is, I learned, obviously, from a leadership standpoint, when your coach you're that go-between from that, from you're that kind of that buffer from time to time, from the players to you as a leader, as a captain, to your coach. And that works both ways, good and bad. So when things aren't going well, and when I was playing, we didn't have, our teams we sucked. It was kind of a rebuilding period for the program. A few years after I left, they wound up making some pretty good strides. So we were, the group that I had, we were kind of foundational with kind of the turnaround of the program. For when I got there, they stunk for a number of years, and the guys that came in with me were kind of at that very beginning stage of turning the program around for years down the road. So it was a culture shift. So, I think a lot of kids don't understand the leadership that you pick up as an athlete in college. That is going to benefit you so much down the road as you get into a career, and, and all of that. Because there's times where, like, I look at, the job I left, where I reported directly to our CEO, and then I had a team that I had, that I ran. It was the same situation as when I was in school, where I was that buffer between the two. And, the coach will tell you some things, and maybe that message shouldn't, those are some messages that shouldn't get back to the guys in the team, that you need to have, the coach needs to have some confidence in you, that you can keep things a little bit confidential about what's going on in the team. And then there's times where somebody might not want to speak up, that's in the team, comes to you because they want you to be a voice, because it might get better, you might get a better return from the coach if you go and tell them and say, hey, listen, I'm talking on behalf of the player. So, there's a lot of things there on the leadership side that I learned, and is very fortunate. If you look at the numbers, it's less than 8% of high school athletes play college sports. So, incredibly blessed, incredibly fortunate, but, also, I wouldn't say I'm privileged with that. I had to work for it. And, it was a great experience. It was a tremendous experience, and something I would never change. Very, very fortunate with where with what it taught me. And, like I said, that time period was tough. I mean, you're working, I was basically doing 17-hour, 18-hour days almost every single day. And that builds character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if no one has ever worked like that, then maybe they don't understand. But I think, there are a number of people out there who are blue collar, who understand what it's like to not just do it, but have to do it. Right. But I think whenever you're an athlete, like, I have this goal, I have something I want to do here. And so the outcome is going to be worth the effort, putting all this effort in, so it sort of drives you. But one of the things that you said that really stood out to me, because I think a lot of people maybe don't know this or don't ever really sit back and think about this, the time management piece that you said you learned as a college athlete, that is huge, absolutely huge. Yeah. So I know for myself, I was getting up, I would go work out first thing. I was a wrestler, so I had to manage my weight, but also wanted to be in phenomenal shape. So I would get up and I would go work out first thing in the morning. I would get on like the stationary bike and I would ride the Airdyne type bikes, go to class. I would come into practice early, drill, have practice, stay afterward, drill. And then the varsity guys, especially second semester, we would be brought back like 9:00 at night and we would do just straight conditioning, and I'm having classes in between that. And what's amazing, and I find this to be the case today for myself, during the school year, because I'm a school teacher, so I'm in school all day and I'm coaching. My wife's a coach and we have 4 kids and they're all in sports. So life's crazy, right? We have to be very organized and scheduled. But I almost get more done during the school year than the summer, or this last year during quarantine. I had to figure out a new system because, like, whenever you're a college athlete, you're so busy, but I also feel like it brings a level of focus. And so it's like the couple of the blocks, you said the word blocks, the blocks that you have, you really stay focused and put a lot of effort and intention into them. And I find myself as an adult doing the same thing. I can get a ton done in an hour or 2 hours of very focused time. So that's a skill.
Yeah. And that's, it was interesting after I got done playing, after I got out of college and, got into the work world, you go back to, I don't know, middle school, where I'm going from soccer, basketball to baseball, go into high school, soccer, basketball, baseball season. And then into college, sport turns into more of a full-time job there where, it's very hard to play multiple sports. I mean, people do it, but, it's rare. And then when I got out, into the work world, I was like, I have so much time. I don't know what to do with myself. And I got I got less productive, to be quite honest with you. When I was in my early 20s, there's things that I wish I would have done that, I wish I would have had somebody tell me some of these things then, but I was like, oh my God, you mean all I have to do is just go to work and come home? Like, what am I going to do with the rest of the 16 hours in a day? It was quite an adjustment. I think athletes really struggle with that too. I mean, so there's a couple things. I mean, when you take the jersey off for the last time in an official setting, that is somewhat traumatic for some people. Some people deal with, depression, anxiety, other things that kind of go along with that. And, I think schools should do a little bit more to help people. It's also the same thing in the military. I think once people get out of the military, they struggle with that too, because there's an identity there. There's something that they're known for, and people associate them, especially if you've been in the military for 10 years, or maybe you're a career person, you put 20 years in or whatever. And it happens a lot in special operators too, and people that are in special forces, where they struggle a lot when they get out of the teams. They, and there's a humongous, and I want to bring a point on this. There's a humongous problem in this country with veteran suicide. And this country needs to do a better job for the people that wore the uniform for this nation. I don't pretend to have any answers. All I know is I go to the VA hospital with my dad on some of his visits sometimes, and I see people there that are in rough shape, man. And this country's got to do a better goddamn job for helping these people. And I don't know what needs to be done. Like I said, I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, or anything like that, but there's a lot of smart people out there, and something's got to be done about that. And, going back to the athlete side, a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, it's like they can't let go of the glory days. And, and I think, you got to get to a point where you say, you know what, I got to put this stuff in a box. I need to compartmentalize it, put it up on a shelf, and just get on with life and take those lessons that you learned as an athlete, the determination, dedication, teamwork, drive, time management, whatever it is, and just really move forward with them and say, I need to be known as something else now. I need to define a new role for me and get people to know me as this, because I'm not the athlete anymore. You may think you are, but once you get out into the work world, nobody gives a shit if you were an All-American or you were the 14th guy on the bench on a 15-man basketball team. Doesn't matter. So, people need to really find that next identity. And I tell people that I talk to that are in college right now is start working on that when you're a sophomore or junior. Don't wait. Start looking for a new identity then. If there's something that you're interested in, go find whoever's great at it and start working on that then. You want to, whatever it is, find another passion. I don't care what it is. You love tiddlywinks. Go find out who the best tiddlywinks players in the world. I don't care. But do something to set yourself up for when that finale, and that finality's coming 100%. Everybody gets told you aren't good enough anymore. You can't play anymore unless your name is Michael Jordan, Peyton Manning, John Elway, and a very short list of people. You get told at some point in your life you suck and you can't play anymore, or your eligibility is expired. So the sooner you start working on finding something else to do and something else to be passionate about and have a purpose, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, that's an absolute real thing. Being in wrestling, there's no professional. There's no way for us to go to, I can't graduate college and become a professional wrestler. And, no. I guess there is. WWE is a whole different kind of deal, different kind of wrestling. So
The Rock, you'd be the Rock man doing, jumping on tables and stuff, right?
Yeah. So now today we're fortunate in wrestling because MMA is such a power right now. Like when I was coming out of college, MMA was still pretty much underground. And one of the things I do, I train a lot of MMA fighters. But I'm too old now to jump in it myself. When I was coming out, that wasn't really an option. Now it's a pretty viable option. But for anybody, because I know this is an area that you have a lot of expertise in. So I guess I'll just give my own story real quick. But I know whenever I finished wrestling in college, there was like you said, a finality to it that I didn't see coming. I didn't expect it. I'd competed I started wrestling since I could walk pretty much, competed my entire life. And I even told myself, with my weightlifting and training, and I'm still a fitness nut, sort of a strength conditioning guru type guy. But I always told myself, even when I was a college athlete, whenever I'm in the off season, I work out because I want to work out, because I like it, and this and that. I get done wrestling in college, and now I'm coaching in college. I remember going in, I'm lifting weights by myself. It's early in the morning, and I'm lifting, and this is 3 weeks after I finished competing, and I'm just dude, what am I doing in here? Where's my motivation? And I realized that my entire life I had a carrot dangling in front of me. I was trying to be a state champion. I was trying to be a national champion. I was trying to be an All-American. And even though I said I lifted just because I wanted to lift, I still I wanted to be the strongest dude ever on the wrestling mat. And now all of a sudden I'm I could be all yoked up, but for what? What's my motivation now?
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years, and I got into jiu-jitsu and competed in that for a while. And then finally there was a point where I could care less about that stuff, and coaching became my passion. I was able to kind of transition that. So for the athletes that are out there that maybe they haven't got to work with you yet when they're a sophomore and they're just coming out, or they're a year out of school, whatever, what are some of the things that they can do? Because we don't want our identity to be placed on one thing anyway, right? Because then you have this,
Right.
if I win, I matter. If I lose, I don't matter. Or Ronda Rousey is a good example. Here she was a superstar in the UFC. She got beat and lost her title and literally went and killed herself because her identity was stripped from her, right? And thankfully she didn't, was able to work through that. But what are some of the things that we can do when we're coming out to find a new identity, or take what we've learned and move that passion to something else?
I would say one of the big ones is you got to start networking. A natural thing let me back up a little bit. An unnatural thing for most people to do is network in a business setting. They don't know what to say. They don't know what questions to ask. Especially for people especially for people that are in college, especially for that student athlete that's in college. They're worried about, well, I don't really have a ton of value to bring, what's somebody going to, networking. Because they're always taught, networking is, you do something for me, I do something for you. That's what they kind of teach people in college. And most colleges do an absolutely terrible job in terms of preparing somebody for networking. Most career centers in schools are awful at that. And I've worked with a ton of them. There's some great ones out there, but the majority of them do not do a good enough job preparing students to network with employers. So that's a big one. So I would really, if I had advice for anybody that's listening on here, is number one, you have to get proficient at networking. You have to go out and you have to try things out. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And the great thing is right now in the world today, there's never been more opportunities to network with people. Find something that you love. If you love going to the gym, go to the gym. And yeah, it might be awkward to talk to somebody when they're in the middle of doing a set or something like that. But, wait till a common time where maybe they get done with the workout, you finish up with the workout. I'm not saying stalk somebody, but start talking to them about, hey, what do you do? Tell me about yourself. Put yourself in situations where you're forcing yourself to network and you're forcing yourself to meet people in common interest things that you like. Secondly, is you have to learn how to sell. And selling is, sales is literally in every single thing in this world. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're a teacher, you're an accountant, you're recruiting somebody. I don't care. Sales is everywhere. And you have to learn how to be persuasive. You have to learn how to listen to people and pick up on social cues and all of those things. So the two things that I tell people to do is learn how to sell. I don't care what it is, learn how to sell and learn how to network. With those two superpowers, you can literally do anything in your life in any profession. And colleges don't spend a lot of time teaching people sales either. And it's crazy to me. It's unbelievable. And they're starting to do more of it now. I see more sales oriented classes in business schools and all of that. But for the longest time, somebody goes and gets a business degree, they don't teach you anything about sales. It's like insane to me, like how that works. So those are two big things that I would say to really start to prepare for the next step of somebody's life to do, is really invest time in learning how to sell something and how to network. And anybody, people follow Gary Vaynerchuk or any of these other people, Grant Cardone, whoever it might be, they're going to tell you the same exact thing. It's no secret recipe. You have to do those two things really proficiently to be successful outside of the world. And, Chad, look at what, with what you're doing right now. I mean, a coach dude, you're selling, man. You're selling why people need to work out, why people should be. You talk to a coach in America right now. You're a salesman, man. I know Lance Leipold is head coach over at UB here in Buffalo, University of Buffalo. And this dude, he won 5-6 Division III national titles before he got the job at University of Buffalo. And I was talking to Lance. I go, you're a salesman, brother. I don't know what to tell you, man, but you got to convince people to come here, a cold ass Buffalo. You guys didn't even have an indoor facility. Now you got one, but it's a little bit easier for the sell job. But these guys, sales is all around you, man. It's like, you need to be really good at that. And that's a big message that I try to get across to people that are looking to kind of, set themselves up for that next step after their career's over.
That's phenomenal advice. And two things I would have never thought about coming out of college. And, I'll confirm what you said with sales, man. I didn't realize that everything was sales for a long time. And then over a decade ago, I got into the direct sales market. I don't do a lot with it anymore, but I became a top 1%er in the direct sales market, and, brought my wife home, and we, made very good money doing it. That doesn't even matter. The skill set that I learned in doing that made me a better coach.
100%.
It made me, it led to me authoring a best-selling book. It led to so many other areas in my life. And for me, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be really good at it. And I remember like having to build up the courage, and I'm a pretty courageous dude, but I remember having to build up the courage to talk to somebody about these products, right? I'd never done that. I didn't consider myself a salesman. I actually looked away from it. Like I had taken these products since I was 19, but I'm like, dude, I would never, no, I'm not that kind of guy. I don't sell things. So when I decided to do it, I mean, I would like literally see somebody, and this is just me, my crazy athletic, competitive type self, I guess, but I would see somebody, and if I got a nervous feeling, even thinking about talking to them, I would make myself go talk to them. Period. I would make myself go talk to them about it. And whether they said yes or no or interested or not, I knew when I walked away, I just got a little better. I was practicing, right? I was getting better. And overall, like I said, even though I don't do a lot with direct sales anymore, that made me so much better in these other areas of my life. In the leadership training that I learned while doing all that stuff, reading books, going to conferences, getting to be in room, because we reached a level, getting to be in rooms with best-selling authors, but there's only 20 of us in there and they're teaching us direct. Dude, I've never grown so much as a human being as during that time, and then learned a skill set that I employ today of constant growth, mental growth and spiritual growth and emotional growth that applies to everything we do in life.
Yeah. Here's the deal. People don't like to be told no. So and I don't care if, you get it's funny because you get the same feeling when you go to ask a pretty girl as to trying to close a deal. Like the feeling's the same because you're in the back of your mind, people don't like rejection. I mean, you're hardwired to not want to be rejected or told no. So that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks with people, is the reason why people don't pick up the phone, or the reason why people don't get what they want, is because they're afraid of hearing no. And if you can just get over that hurdle, because at the end of the day, no doesn't mean no forever. No means no for now.
No, yeah.
Rarely does no mean forever. So if somebody can get over that hurdle and say, okay, well, they've told me no, big deal. You know what? I got another 20, 30 phone calls to make. Somebody there sure as hell going to say yes to me. So just get to work, and that's the same thing I think that prevents people from being, even great athletes, is they don't want to get told no sometimes. Anybody that has a dream that holds something near and dear to them, they're deathly afraid of getting told no. Like I look at John Gordon. I mean, everybody knows who John Gordon is. Great, wrote tons of books. I mean, he's the energy bus dude, and wrote The Carpenter, and all these great books. John Gordon got rejected 30 times on his first book.
Yeah,
30 companies told John Gordon no. Do you think any of them are having regret right now?
yeah.
Dude's a multi-millionaire. He makes like $2 million a year when he goes out and, all his speaking engagements, plus all the books he does. I mean, but he didn't take no for an answer. And he's just one example of tens of thousands of examples of people that have been successful after hearing no, but it's all how you respond. Yeah. It's not what, and that's one of the things that I had a hard time getting over. So my first job out of college, I was in the car business, man. And so I worked at a dealership that I sold Volvos, Pontiac, and GMC. And then we had some pre-owned certified and all that. And that was one of the biggest things that I struggled with in a 100% commission job. And the reason I took that job is because I wanted to learn how to sell. I wanted to learn how to negotiate. I wanted to learn how to network. I wanted to learn how to talk to people. I knew I would never be in that job forever, but I took it for a reason, because none of those things that I just mentioned were taught to me in college.
Yeah.
None of them, not one of them. And I knew if I was going to be successful in life, I needed to do that. And I needed to go and take that job. There's other jobs I could have had that were far easier than that. But the biggest thing I struggled with in that first year was rejection. And I hated it because I've rarely ever rejected in life before. I rarely was met with failure in life before. And I had a hard time handling it until I figured out that no is just no. It's just no. That's it. It's 2 letters. So just deal with it. That changed everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. So many people are scared, and you said athletes too. So many athletes are scared to fail. People are scared of rejection. Therefore, they just don't even step out. But let me use this
100%.
transition into our next. So here you go from being in corporate leader, being a corporate employee and in leadership, and a job that you go to every single day. And I mean, nothing is guaranteed forever, but sort of a guaranteed type paycheck.
Sure.
To deciding I want to get out of that world and go into entrepreneurship. And I know a number of people personally who have done this type of thing. I'm an entrepreneur myself, but what made you want to do that? And then what kind of mindset shift is it for you to step out of the box and to get uncomfortable in doing that?
Yeah, great question. Honestly, my honest to God answer is I feel I have a bigger calling. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why I feel that way, but I feel I have a bigger calling. With the things that I have playing with competitors mentality, obviously, that I'm in the process of trying to write a book. I'm in the process of, doing some coaching and, and a few other things there, plus an apparel line and a podcast. And I have another business outside of this as well. With actually my best friend, we have a company called River and Ridge. It's a home services company. So the thing that I kind of got sick of was just I'm working to build somebody else's dream, and I didn't have true autonomy to my life. And you know what? Maybe I fail. I don't know, and I really don't care because I'm not looking at things that way. I am focused on the daily work I need to do to get to where I need to go. And I know deep down I have the talent to become who I truly want to be. And I felt that I wasn't being able to realize that where I was. And here's the deal. I'm not, I had a great run at MassMutual. It was awesome. It was literally the best job I've ever had, best experience I've ever had in my life. I'm still friends with my CEO. I'm still friends with tons of people that I worked with. I had tremendous experiences. I mean, MassMutual had me as a national speaker on a number of different times for certain events. It was phenomenal, but there's just something pulling me to building my own deal and working for me and knowing that everything that I put in is for me and it's not for somebody else. And that's no knock on our CEO at all. It's not. And, and he'd be the first person to say that, you should be building your own dreams instead of somebody else's dreams. So that's really, kind of really why, why I made the shift. The mindset that it takes is you just got to be tough. I don't know really any other way to say it. And not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day is going to go right. It may take a while to get where you ultimately need to go, but you have to focus on the journey and not the destination. And that has been something that is incredibly hard for me to do generally over the course of my life, is focus on the journey. I've always been the destination person. I always can't wait till something's done. And this is not that. And then it's taken a kind of a titanic shift in thought process for me to say, you know what, you have to appreciate the journey. You have to appreciate every day. You have to be grateful for every day and every opportunity that comes your way. And you have to take it and do the best that you can with it. And, I have everything I need to do this and to be an entrepreneur. And I know that it's going to work out because it has to. So, but it's exciting. I'm enjoying every minute of it. And, I wouldn't have it any other way. I asked for it. So I made my bed. So I got to lie in it and make the best of it. And I know I will.
Yeah, I love it, man. It inspires me. Like just hearing you talk about it gets me fired up. Like seriously inside, I kind of feel like a little bit of some fire in there. And the thing is, some people love their job and it's their calling and they're in it and they love being an employee. Some people don't like it at all, but they're cool with just going and putting in their 8 or 9 hours a day and getting a paycheck, and then spending, fun times or other times outside of that. And then, some people, and I think you do have to be tough, because I know I'm really good friends with a lot of entrepreneurs. You got to be tough. You got to figure out your system, but your passion pushes you. And I love it when people are willing to step outside of their comfort zone and push themselves, because they know, like you said, you know deep down that there's a higher calling, there's a purpose, there's more to you, and you get to build your own thing, So for me, like that's so inspirational to hear, to see. And when somebody has the guts to follow that inspires everybody else.
Yeah, and the big thing with me is, that's it for me, is I want to inspire people, and part of the reason that I have this brand, Competitors Mentality, is to do just that, is to inspire people to be better. And the content that I put out is purposeful. I want people to see that, and I want it to inspire people to be better, to chase their own goals, to chase their own dreams, and to do the things that they want to do. And that's the big thing, and the big reason why, I started this brand a number of months ago, is to do just that, is to really push and inspire people. And you know what, none of us are perfect, but you know what, there's somewhere deep inside of us, there is purpose and passion for something. And my hope is that this brand will find that within somebody, to where they discover their passion, discover that they want to do, and say, and kind of, stick their foot in the dirt and say, hey, you know what, now's my time to really go after what I want to do in life and be who I really want to be.
Absolutely. Now let's speak real quick, specifically about podcasting. All right. So you're a podcast host, the Competitors Mentality. I love podcasting. I've listened to podcasts for years, and finally decided to get my foot in the door and to start it and do it. Why did you start the podcast, and what's your favorite thing about it?
I started the podcast because I'm a trained interviewer. So it's easy for me to interview people. I mean, that's something that I did for a career for a decade. So I thought, you know what, why not have my own deal, have my own soapbox, so to speak, and get guests on that were going to deliver great content. And thankfully, 20 something episodes in, knock on wood, everybody's been awesome so far. And thanks to you, Chad, for coming on. And, you got some great things that you added. And, so that was number one, is I just, I wanted a kind of a platform for myself to kind of showcase my own interviewing skills to the world, selfishly. And then also kind of follow up to what I just said. I mean, I wanted the podcast to be able to inspire people and have people on that have really accomplished things in life. And, whether it's, writing a book, or, any of the, the special operators that I've had on the podcast, and things that they've done, and just really kind of explore the mindset of success and what it takes to be successful in athletics, or in the military, or just in life in general. My favorite, and as far as my favorite part goes, I mean, that's probably just expanding my network. That's, I guess, kind of a byproduct of all this, is I've gotten to meet some tremendous people through the way here, people that I know I'm going to wind up staying in touch with and in contact with for years to come, that, that obviously that they can help me, I can help them. And, it's probably been my favorite part, is just expanding, going back to the networking thing, is expanding your network, because your network is really your net worth. If you have tons of people in your network that are doing big things and doing, inspirational things, you're going to follow along with that. If you got 10 people in your network, and they're all broke, and they're all doing, things they shouldn't be doing, you're going to be the 11th. And if you got 10 people in your network that are all doing great things and accomplishing things, you're going to be the 11th in that as well. So, that's kind of the other, kind of the best part about it for me, is just really expanding and furthering the network.
Yeah. Great thought process there. For me, it's kind of the same thing, man. Like, I love being able to inspire people. And it's one of the things I love about your podcast is you have these guests on, like you said. I always want to be able to study, like, what makes successful people successful. And then let's share that.
Yeah.
Right? Principles, they apply everywhere. Once you know them, you can apply them in your own life. So I love that about your show and getting on and listening to these people who've been successful. And selfishly, I think one of my favorite things about podcasting is I get all kinds of free coaching because I'm getting on with amazing people who have had success in various areas of life. And then I get to hear how they did it. So I'm getting coaching myself, right? And then we get to share this with the world, and everybody else gets to listen to it for free as well. So
it's really enriching. And you know, the lessons that I've taken away and I've even applied to my own life since I started doing this is, you know, it's phenomenal. And it's also interesting too, to kind of hear the difference of opinions as well on certain topics, and you kind of filter in what makes sense to you and what doesn't make sense. And one of the things that kind of jumps out to me is, I had Craig Ballantyne on my podcast, who's his nickname's the Millionaire Maker. He's mentored like 200 something people to be millionaires. Huge guy in the coaching world, just phenomenal. Like Bedros is one of his clients and a few other people. And you know, Craig's like, I was talking to Craig because I've been a morning workout guy for a long time. Like I try to work out first thing in the morning and kind of get that out of the way. And, you know, Craig's there telling me, he's like, that's the absolute worst time to work out. He's like, when you wake up, that's when your mind and everything is kind of, for most people, is at peak performance. So you should spend that doing tasks that are most important, and you kind of eat your biggest frog first kind of thing. And he's like, if working out is important to you, you're going to find time in other pockets of the day to build in a workout. But it's like the least productive thing to do in the morning, which goes counter to what most everybody says. Is they say, you know, you wake up at 5 o'clock, meditate, work out, read, whatever it is, eat breakfast, and then boom. And he's completely the opposite of that. So it made me kind of think a little bit. I haven't quite adopted it yet, but it's made me think a little bit about how I structure my mornings.
Yeah, I love those outside perspectives. I love people that think of things different, that challenge the norm. And it's got to make sense a little bit, but that does, right?
Sure.
So it kind of challenges what you do, and you got to figure out for yourself, and just talking about working out. I mean, I've been a workout guy my whole life. My dad used to do some natural bodybuilding. And for us, like, I had times growing up where my dad would be like, okay, we're lifting at 6 a.m. and we would lift at 6 a.m. And then I've had times where he's like, hey, we're going to make our weightlifting time at 9 p.m. when we get done working for the whole day. And, looking back, I'm like, there were times I felt great at 6, or times I felt great at 9, times I didn't feel good at either one, and as an adult, like, because I coach, I kind of have to structure my workouts with my athletes, what times that work for them. But for me, I think the best time, and like today, I'm going to work out at 3 p.m. Okay. It is almost always 3 p.m. Why is it 3 p.m.? Because that's after school. And as an athlete, that's when I trained in high school, in college. And sometimes we did morning lifting and stuff, but for the most part, it was 3 p.m. And as a coach, lifted. So what do I do? Even on my days off, if I'm not with my athletes, 3 p.m. traditionally, because that's kind of the workout time. So I love hearing those different perspectives and thought processes.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm such a routine person. Like my morning routine is literally the same every single day. I get up at the same time. So I get up. Yeah. So I generally get up at about 5:15. My alarm goes off at about 5:08 to kind of lay in bed for about 7 minutes. Get up 5:15. First thing I do when I wake up is I drink 40 ounces of water right off the bat. Boom. Normally the last 12 is with some aminos. And then I kind of figure out what I'm going to do with my day. After I drink that, I go right to my gratitude journal. I fill my gratitude journal out. It normally takes me about 10 minutes, make a plan for whatever I got to do that day. And then I get right into, a workout. I normally don't work out more than about 30 to 40 minutes. It's about kind of in that block of time. And then after that, I, get cleaned up. Normally our son's waking up right around that point of time. And I spend a little bit of time with him. My wife's off to school. I go drop our little guy off, and I get into my day. So that's pretty much the way it rolls every day. And the thing is I do the same thing on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday. I've found that it's incredibly disruptive if you have a different routine on Saturday and Sunday than the whole rest of the week. So I try to keep that same routine on Saturday or Sunday. And, if I stay up a little bit later, I just got to pay the price. That's, the price to pay to do that is you might feel a little sleepy in the morning when you wake up if you only got about 4.5 hours sleep. So, but that, I find that that's what works for me. The big thing is that 40 ounces of water with aminos really gets me going right off the bat. And it kind of jumpstarts my system for the day. And it's, I've been doing that now for about, 7 years now, every single day. So, I try to drink 100 ounces of water a day. That's kind of my minimum bar. So I get almost half of that out right first thing in the morning.
Now, I'm a nutrition nerd, but tell me why you drink 100 ounces of water a day, and why do you consume so much in the morning? What's the point behind it, the purpose behind it?
Yeah, well, 100 for me is half my body weight. So, if you look at, there's a little bit of debate to this, but most people say, most people kind of in that, that nutrition performance phase say you should drink half of your body weight. So I'm 6'1.5", 200. So that's where I live, is in that 100 ounce range. Sometimes I do a little bit more. I go to 105, 110. And then the other part is, the reason I put out, I do those 40 ounces in the morning is partly, it also helps clean out toxins in your system too. So that's a big piece. Also, gives me a jump on hydration for working out too. And that's a big thing as well. But a big piece of that is kind of the toxins that kind of get cleared out of your body when you do that first thing.
Good. Yeah. So that's, honestly, it's something I hadn't done for a long time. And hydration is something that I have to intentionally focus on, because I'll get to the end of the day and I use a lot of supplements, but I'll be like, dang, the only time I even had drinks today was whenever I was mixing a supplement. Right. Yeah. And then back, and I can 100% feel when I'm hydrated and focused on that, a positive difference versus whenever I don't focus on it. And at the end of the day, I know I'm dehydrated. My mouth is dry, urine's darker, those type of things. But I have when I wake up in the morning, I have a drink that has all kinds of aminos and vitamins, and it has some caffeine. I'm not a coffee guy, nothing against coffee. I've tried to like it. I just can't. I like it periodically, but I even bought nice beans and ground them up and tried like a barista, man. And I'm just I just don't dig it that much. But
you're not tossing out a green apron or anything like that anytime soon to go work at Starbucks.
No. So, but I have a nutrition drink I have first thing in the morning, and get my brain going, get it rolling. But something that I've heard a lot and has stuck with me is hydrate before you caffeinate. And so I have been in the morning, I wake up, I take amino acids right away typically, but I fill up a big jug. It's like a 30-ounce jug of water. And then I have a shaker cup I use, but I start down in that water right away. And I've been doing that before I take my other product that's going to get me kind of fired up. And it just felt, and I've been doing this for a few months now, and I can absolutely tell the difference. So thank you for sharing. That's a great tip people need to know.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the other thing too is sleep. The more people that I talk to, you have to get proper sleep. If people are shorting themselves on sleep, you're causing your body a lot of stress that it doesn't need. Mm-hmm. So people need to get full nights worth of sleep. If that means, stopping Netflix at 9:30 and sleeping from 9:30 to, 6 o'clock or whatever. You need to get a full night's sleep every night, because that does so much for you in so many ways that, I think it's interesting because science now is there's a lot more material out there now that the effects of quality sleep or not quality sleep have on individuals. So, so very, very important.
Absolutely. And then I believe in pretty much everything in life. Consistency is key. Whenever you do things consistently, even let's just say working out, even if you don't know how to ride a workout and you did like a terribly programmed workout, if you just worked out though consistently 3 to 5 times a week, you're going to get in a little better shape. You're going to get a little bit stronger. If you ate clean 85% of the time, and you normally only eat clean 60% of the time, if you did 85% of the time, you're going to get leaner,
Sure.
So, and then of course, if you can do those things at high levels consistently, you're going to continue to get even better. But so I point that out because you said even on weekends, you hold that same routine.
Yeah. The other thing too is if people are going through like a routine change, the thing that I've been told by people is try to improve at 10% of the time. Don't go, full throttle 0 to 100 and just immediately cold turkey something. Some people can do that, but majority of human beings can't, and you're going to wind up relapsing and breaking that. Yeah. So even things like eating, can you improve your diet by 10%? Is there something that you can switch out? Say for a snack, you have chips. Can you have blueberries? I don't know, something like that feeds your brain. Make those little minor changes, but you don't need to go full turkey and full cold turkey into something. And same thing with sleep. Can you wake up at, if you're used to waking up at 6:30 in the morning, don't just all of a sudden set your alarm clock for 5:10. That's not going to work. You're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So if you wake up at 6:30, maybe set your alarm clock to like 6:10. And then once you get comfortable at 6:10, maybe set your alarm clock to 5:55. I don't know. But don't try to do that. Make that big shift right away. It'll never stick for the majority of people. It doesn't stick, and they wind up relapsing. So. Absolutely.
Yeah. James Clear, Atomic Habits, does a phenomenal job at teaching people the whole thought process behind doing things small, incremental. And it's the whole reason why somebody has a New Year's resolution and 8 days later or 10 days, they're done with it. It's gone, right? They try to make this huge shift. Yeah. That couldn't happen. But all right, brother, well, as we get ready in this out, I always like to do this. I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Okay.
Sure.
So I didn't send you the question ahead of time or anything. So it's just straight off the wall. These have been off the dome for you. So you've done a phenomenal job. But all right, on the hot seat, you're going to tell me about either a hero, a highlight, or a heartbreak in your life, and then just expound upon it, right? So pick either a hero, a highlight, or a heartbreak and tell me about it.
Wow. Hero, heartbreak, or highlight. Well, I already kind of covered my hero with my grandfather. So maybe I'll switch to a low light
or a heartbreak?
Heartbreak. I'll talk about a heartbreak. I'll talk about the only time I ever felt really broken as a human being. And that was after a relationship that I had that ended, I don't know, probably 12 years ago. It was almost too good to be true. We grew up together, our parents knew each other, same neighborhood, all of that kind of stuff. She was a pretty girl, and, it was just kind of like almost out of a movie script, and things, everybody thought for sure that we were going to, wind up together and get married, and things didn't work out that way. And, there was some abuse, on her end at the end of it. And, a lot of guys, it's always about, the guy doing the domestic violence on the woman. And this was actually the other way around. But as a guy, you're like, you're not going to say anything. You just kind of take it and you deal with it. And, you just go from there. And a lot of the things that, that she did, from even there was a little bit of a physical standpoint, but a lot of it was from just a mental standpoint, which absolutely wound up just completely tearing me apart. Like I've never been torn apart before. And that taught me that situation. I'm actually so thankful for that situation now, because I don't think that I would have the marriage I have today and be the husband that I am today if it wasn't for me going through that situation. So that, that heartbreak turned into the biggest blessing that I've ever been given in my life. And that's my family, my wife, Stephanie, and our little boy, Erickson. It taught me a lot about what I can take, what I can deal with, what I'm willing to deal with, and what I'm not willing to deal with is I guess probably the biggest piece of that is, and it's interesting, like when you're in a situation like that, when you're in a relationship, and listen, I'm not like, what's that lady that writes in the newspaper all the time that, the relationship advice or whatever, what was her name?
Like Dear Abby or something.
Yeah. Dear Abby. I'm not Dear Abby. But what I can say is a lot of times guys in a relationship push a lot of things down if they're on the receiving end of, of any kind of physical or verbal abuse. To speak up is not being weak. So, and I want to make sure that people, that guys who listen to this know this, if you're in a relationship like that. And, I didn't expect to be talking about this today, but here we are. But if you're in a situation like that, it's okay to, to speak up about it, and to understand what you're willing to tolerate and what you're willing not to tolerate, and draw a line in the sand and say, this is it. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. And I think part of the reason why I was broken is I tolerated things that I knew deep down I should have never tolerated. Because I thought it was for the greater good of, of a future relationship, or what my parents wanted, or what her parents wanted, or, whatever. But ultimately I learned a tremendous amount about myself, and it's made me a much better person for going through that. And like I said, a great, at least I like to think I'm a great husband and a great father. And, I don't think I wouldn't be the person that I am from a relationship standpoint if I didn't go through that. So it went from heartbreak to best thing that ever happened to me, and finding my wife.
Absolutely. Hearing, anytime I ask this question and somebody shares a heartbreak, one of the most awesome things is this: many times it leads to one of the best things ever in your life that follow after it. And not everybody, I guess, in life, because a lot of people, I guess, maybe let it keep them down and break them. But
sure,
those who overcome usually look back and say, even though that was terrible, I'm grateful for it because of where I am now and what it has taught me.
Yeah. And that's so true with everything. I mean, you have to look at everything. You have to be grateful for everything in life, whether, something bad happens, whether something good happens. And, the simple thing that I try to do when something doesn't quite work out for me is I took this from JUCO Willink, is I say good.
Yeah.
If something doesn't go right, if I lose, it's something good. I got more time to prepare to get better. I'm going to do better next time. If whatever it is, something just didn't go right, I always say good. It gives me more time to prepare to be better at something else. And, so that's what I have to say about the relationship is good. It gave me what I needed to be better and to understand myself more as a human being.
Excellent. Well, Eric, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it, man. Dropping some wisdom on us today. Going back and looking at this, anybody that's listening, I always suggest this, and please do. Make sure you have a notepad, make sure you have a pencil, go back. I don't care. Put it in your phone, but the things that stuck out and things that you learned, don't just leave those to your memory, right? Because they're going to fade away. Write them down somewhere, and let's take and make these actionable steps. Make sure that you check out Eric's podcast. And before we check out of here, my man, tell me, where can we get a hold of you and follow you and all those kind of things on your social media?
Sure. Yeah, the place that I'm most active is, you can find me on LinkedIn. Put a lot of stuff on there, both on my personal LinkedIn page, and then also the Competitors Mentality LinkedIn page. My Instagram for Competitors Mentality is at Competitors Mentality. It's pretty new, so we're building that up right now, and I got almost daily content that I push out on there. So those are probably the two places that people can find me.
Excellent. And I'll make sure that I put those links in the show notes so everybody can check those out. Again, thank you for being on, and everybody that's listening. This has been another episode of Coach P's Perspective. May God bless you and may make his face shine upon you. Until next time, peace.